Alright, YouTube, for the last week you've seen nothing from the legacy media that doesn't involve fake news, propaganda. It's getting so funny. Get this. Salon last night, they're far left and so forth. And, have a Republican in office, they're going to be like, oh, government bad, government evil, government tyrannical, or something like that. It's gotten to the point where they were talking about only consuming U.S. news. They're actually acting like nativists. It's astonishing how dumb they really are. They don't even realize that they're calling for the sort of things that the fringe of the right wing was calling for a couple of years ago. They've been completely hoodwinked by their media masters. The legacy media is dying. That much is clear. Now, when an edifice begins dying off, what does it do? It goes all out to try to preserve itself, and it usually changes form and becomes more virulent. That is, what we're going to see over the coming years, I think, is the legacy media, the CNNs, Foxes, and so forth, are going to become little more than propaganda mouthpieces. Everything that they say will be nothing but bias. And I would like to point out, when we look at InfoWars or Anon HQ or any of these other sites, yes, some of the stuff that's being put out there is falsified. It's not actually news. There's no source. It never happened. They're talking about some politician said such and such, and there's no actual clip of that politician saying any such thing. It's either wildly spun out of context, or it was completely fake. That is, that nothing even approximating it happened, and it's manufactured news. It's literally propaganda of one sort or another, or clickbait. That is true. CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all these other sites do this all the time. When you take a story and you spin it into oblivion and add nothing but personal bias on the utmost level, and you ram it into people's heads, then it is the same thing. It is fake news, because what you have extrapolated from a real event is no longer that real event. The importance that you've put on it is so heavily weighted towards your own analytical bias that the original story is almost meaningless. For example, let's say MSNBC covering a hurricane, and they start talking for 2 hours about climate change. That has nothing to do with the actual hurricane. You're not talking about the death toll, you're not talking about damage, you're not talking about wave height, you're not talking about wind speed, you're not talking about rainfall totals. No, you're talking about some scientific theory that you're chalking up to being responsible for the hurricane. There's a big difference between the two. It is fake news. The attempt to differentiate corporate media, which is all that these groups are, from some underground site, some upstart site, some random blog or YouTuber, by calling the latter fake news or biased or something. You're biased. You have been for decades. That's the point. That's why these groups are rising in popularity. It's almost to the point where it doesn't matter if the news is fake that you're absorbing, because most of what you see on the TV news is fake on a daily basis. Much of what you see there, you don't even realize it. You sit there, you're almost hypnotized by the boob tube. You're not really thinking about what you're watching. You end up just sort of mindlessly absorbing this swill, and that's exactly what it is. It's 50% outright hyperbole and 50% spin that has nothing to do with the original story. It's a form of propaganda. You zone out, and you start listening to the talking heads and to the pundits, and they're telling you all of these different things that sound really good, they sound really factual, and you're absorbing it. Most of it's not even true. Not even slightly. When Fox talks about something, they're going to spin it into oblivion. When CNN talks about something, they'll spin it into oblivion. But the biggest lie being told, and this is why they're the agent of their own misfortune. The biggest lie today being told by our legacy media, the CNNs and so forth, is lie by omission. It's not that they're lying specifically to people, it's that they refuse to talk about stories that they find politically, socially, spiritually, economically, or whatever inconvenient. Therefore, you get MSNBC. Are they even going to report upon this Ohio attack that probably involved some lone nut that was radicalized by ISIS literature? No. When they thought that it was a mass shooting, they were reporting on it. Oh, so many people may be injured. What's happening here? We're trying to get the police on the line. And then as soon as they realized that it had nothing to do with a gun and involved an Islamic migrant, they shut up and never wanted to talk about it again. It is a lie by omission because the story was inconvenient for their own bias. That's the problem with corporate media. In fact, it's the problem with any media. Everybody has some sort of bias. I'm biased. I have bias. I just try my best to suppress it because I'm more interested in being accurate and truthful and being right. Look at what happened during the election. If I was going based on my bias towards thinking, oh, maybe the polls are right, maybe what happened in 2012 is about to happen again, I would have been wrong because I would have guessed, yeah, Hillary will probably carry this. She didn't, because deep inside my gut, I knew that she wasn't. I knew Trump was going to win. I knew that she was toast, basically. I was looking at the polls. It just didn't add up. It just didn't make sense to me. The thing is, that's because of the bias of the pollsters. It was their bias. It was their fault. The media, for months and months, they proclaimed, oh, it's impossible for Trump to win. His path to election is so slim, he can never do it. It would be so remarkable. It'd be historic, legendary. It'll never happen. And ironically, what they did is set themselves up to get fucked in the ass and on two levels. They set themselves up to be completely and utterly wrong, and they set themselves up for having said if Trump pulls it off that he's some sort of legendary heroic figure because supposedly it was so hard to do. I mean, it was stupid watching them for months and months. I said back in 2015 when the primaries were still going on that if Trump was the nominee, I believe this was in regards to the British media wants us to vote for Hillary Clinton video. I mentioned if Trump is the nominee, he will probably steamroll Hillary Clinton. At the time I just said he will steamroll Hillary Clinton. Same thing. 99% odds, 100% odds. Who fucking cares? The media thought there was a 99% chance Hillary Clinton was going to win. Look at HuffPost's rolling tracking poll thing there that they heavily skew in favor of their own bias. All of these different groups, including some of the smaller sites that follow the basic legacy media formula, are completely wrong all the time. They're completely wrong. How is that different from absolutely manufactured news? If I just make up some fake news article, if I start some website, some WordPress site or something, and start slapping random shit on there that sounds true, and marketing it as though it was real news so that it somehow goes viral and all of a sudden people spread it around. How is that different from what CNN or Fox do? They've got you constantly worried about things you shouldn't worry about, ignoring things you should be concerned about, and trusting a bunch of seven-figure stuffed shirt idiots that stand there and get their high salaries to lie to you. And it's remarkable that more people don't see this. Now, thankfully, that legacy media will continue to die. The fact that they are openly now attacking the smaller and underground and alternative media sites is exactly what we observed, for instance, in the Satanic Panic. The more religious, like churches, they started money grubbing, number one, and they started attacking their critics, number two, because they felt threatened. Therefore, they actually became more zealous, more active for a while, but then they completely collapsed. That's what's happening with the legacy media. It's been seen before in other human edifices, and it's going to continue. They will collapse. I would be surprised if the New York Times exists in 10 years, as a little more than a throwback, sort of just a single website sort of deal with 10 staff. I would be surprised, honestly. The Wall Street Journal, some of these other sites that haven't successfully made the transition to modern news anyway, and number two, people see as just lying to them to begin with. Why would you want to consume that crap? You're going to get better analysis, often less biased analysis, from any dozen randomly chosen YouTubers, bloggers, and Facebook pages than you're ever going to get from some of these multi-million-dollar media entities. They are corporate media. Now, that's the really funny thing that the left doesn't seem to understand. A bunch of large banks, Wall Street insiders, and mega corporations, we're talking big oil, big coal, and everything else that you supposedly hate, they're the ones funding those media apparatuses. These people are all intermarried, they all rub elbows together, they drink wine together, and they probably screw each other at the end of the night constantly. So why would you trust these media outlets? CNN, MSNBC, oh yeah, Rachel Maddow, she always tells the truth. No, she doesn't. She's just a talking head. She's a pundit. And these people are all the same. a bunch of fuckwads. That's about all. Peace out.